The stranger's hand was already extended toward her, when Olivia Mitchell realized he had materialized from the crowd like smoke. His silver wolf mask concealing everything but his sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see straight through her golden butterfly disguise. "Dance with me," he said, and it was not a request but a command delivered in a voice that belonged to someone accustomed to being obeyed. Olivia hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. The annual Riverside Charity Masquerade was the event of the season, held in the sprawling ballroom of the historic Grandview Hotel, and she had spent far too long standing alone near the champagne fountain, pretending to admire the ice sculptures. Her best friend Sarah had abandoned her 20 minutes ago to dance with someone in a peacock mask, leaving Olivia to wonder why she had agreed to attend in the first place. The stranger led her onto the dance floor with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where he belonged. His hand settled on her waist, warm through the emerald silk of her gown, and suddenly they were moving together as the orchestra swelled into a waltz. He moved with practiced grace, guiding her through the crowd of masked dancers with ease. "You look like you were trying to escape," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear it over the music. "I was considering it," Olivia admitted, surprised by her own honesty. There was something about the anonymity of the mask that made truth feel safer. "My friend dragged me here and then she disappeared. Then I saved you from a boring evening." His eyes crinkled at the corners, suggesting a smile hidden beneath the wolf mask. "Or maybe you saved me from one. Somehow I doubt you were bored. You would be surprised what wealth and status cannot buy." The words carried an edge of something darker, something real beneath the playful banter. Olivia studied what she could see of his face. The mask covered his nose and forehead, but his jaw was strong and defined, and his dark hair was styled with careless perfection. He wore a tailored black tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and his cufflinks caught the chandelier light with what looked like genuine diamonds. Everything about him screamed money, but there was a tension in his shoulders that suggested he carried more than just the weight of an expensive suit. "What brings you to a charity masquerade, then?" she asked as he spun her smoothly through a turn. "Besides commanding strangers to dance with you." "The same thing that brings everyone else. Obligation dressed up as generosity." His voice held a note of cynicism that made her curious. "And you?" "My friend Sarah works for the event planning company that organized this. She gave me a ticket and told me I needed to get out more." "Do you need to get out more?" Olivia considered the question as they moved together across the polished floor. "Probably. I spend most of my time at the hospital." "You are a doctor, pediatric nurse." She saw his eyebrows rise above the mask. "What?" "I expected you to say something like art curator or fashion designer." "Because of the dress." Olivia glanced down at her gown, which Sarah had insisted she borrow for the occasion. "This is not mine. I normally wear scrubs decorated with cartoon characters." His laugh was genuine, rich and warm. "That sounds infinitely more interesting than anything here tonight," said no one ever at a fancy masquerade ball. "I am not everyone else." The song ended, but he did not release her hand. Instead, he led her from the dance floor toward the terrace doors, and Olivia found herself following without question. The night air was cool against her skin as they stepped outside, away from the crush of bodies and the overwhelming scent of expensive perfume and champagne. The terrace overlooked the city skyline, glittering with lights that stretched toward the horizon. A few other couples had claimed corners of the space, but her mysterious stranger guided her to a quieter section where the music from inside became a distant melody rather than a deafening presence. "Better," he said, finally releasing her hand. Olivia leaned against the stone railing, grateful for the fresh air. You do not like crowds. I spend too much time surrounded by people who want something from me. He stood beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Tonight I wanted to be no one. Is that why you wear the wolf mask, to hide? Maybe. He turned to face her fully, and even with half his face concealed, his gaze was intense. Or maybe I wear it because it is honest. Better to be the wolf than pretend to be the sheep. That is a rather dark worldview. You see a lot of darkness in your line of work too. It was not a question, and Olivia realized he was right. She did see darkness. Children fighting illnesses that no child should have to face. Families torn apart by tragedy and medical bills that towered like impossible mountains. But she also saw light, small victories and brave faces and moments of pure joy when a child finally got to go home. I see hope, she said finally, even in the dark places. He studied her for a long moment, and she wished she could see more of his face, read the expression hidden behind the silver wolf. You are not what I expected tonight. What did you expect? Someone shallow. Someone interested in my mask rather than what is beneath it. I am interested in what is beneath it, Olivia said, then felt her cheeks warm. I mean, I would like to know your name. Would you? He reached up as if to remove his mask, then stopped. What if I prefer to remain a mystery? Then why did you ask me to dance? Because you looked like you needed saving. I did not need saving. No. His voice held amusement. You were standing alone, clutching a champagne glass like a shield, watching everyone else enjoy themselves. You looked lost. Olivia wanted to argue, but she could not. That was exactly how she had felt, lost in a sea of wealthy strangers playing dress-up for a night, pretending their ticket prices made them charitable while they sipped $1,000 champagne and competed to wear the most expensive jewelry. Maybe I was a little lost, she admitted. Then we have something in common. He moved closer, and Olivia's breath caught. I am always lost at these things. You hide it well. Years of practice. The way he said it made her think there was a story there, layers of meaning beneath the casual words. Before she could ask, the terrace doors opened and a group of laughing guests spilled outside, shattering their private moment. Her stranger stepped back, putting proper distance between them, and Olivia felt the loss like a physical thing. Come, he said, offering his arm. Let me show you something. She should have questioned where he was taking her, should have been more cautious about following a masked stranger through the hotel. But something about him made her feel safe despite the mystery. They left the terrace and moved through the ballroom, his hand warm on the small of her back as he guided her past the dancers and through a side door that led to a quieter corridor. Where are we going? She asked as they climbed a curved staircase lined with portraits of people who had probably been important once upon a time. Somewhere away from the crowd. He led her up 3 flights of stairs and through another door that opened onto the hotel's rooftop garden. Olivia gasped as she took in the sight. Fairy lights were strung between trellises heavy with climbing roses, and a small fountain bubbled in the center of a space that seemed impossibly romantic under the stars. How did you know this was here? She asked. I know this hotel well. He walked to the fountain and sat on its edge, looking up at her with those penetrating blue eyes. Come, sit. Olivia gathered her skirts and sat beside him, very aware of how close they were, how intimate this felt despite knowing nothing about him beyond the fact that he could command a dance and knew secret rooftop gardens. Tell me something real, he said suddenly. Something that matters to you. The request caught her off guard. That is a heavy question for a masked stranger. Maybe that is why I am asking. You do not know who I am, so there is no judgment, no expectation, just honesty. Olivia considered refusing, keeping things light and playful, but something in his voice made her want to answer. "I have a patient," she said slowly. "A little girl named Emma. She is 6 and she has leukemia. She was supposed to go into remission, but last week we found out the cancer came back. That must be difficult to witness. It is destroying her family. Her parents are good people, working class, already drowning in medical debt from the first round of treatment. The father took a second job. The mother quit hers to be with Emma full-time. They are terrified of losing their daughter, and I can see the fear eating them alive every single day. But you are there with them." "I am there with them," Olivia confirmed, surprised by the tightness in her throat. "I hold Emma's hand during the hard procedures. I read her stories when she cannot sleep. I lie to her and tell her everything will be okay, even when I do not know if it will be." His hand covered hers where it rested on the fountain's edge. "That is not a lie. Hope is not a lie. You said that like you know something about it." "I know something about pretending." He squeezed her hand gently. "About wearing masks even when the ball is over." Before Olivia could ask what he meant, music drifted up from below, the orchestra starting a new song that floated through the night air like something out of a dream. The stranger stood and pulled her to her feet. "Dance with me," he said again. And again it was a command she wanted to obey. This time when they danced, there was no crowd watching, no obligation or performance. It was just the two of them moving together under the stars, his arm around her waist and her hand in his, their bodies fitting together like they had been designed to match. Olivia rested her head against his chest and heard his heartbeat, steady and strong beneath the expensive fabric of his tuxedo. "I do not even know your name," she murmured. "Does it matter? Should it not?" He was quiet for a moment, still guiding her through the steps of the waltz even though there was no one to see them. "Tonight, can I just be the man in the wolf mask? Can you just be the woman who sees hope in dark places? Who are you really?" Olivia pulled back enough to look up at him. "Why all the mystery? Because the moment I tell you who I am, everything changes. You will see me differently. You will wonder if everything I have said has been manipulation or agenda. The mask will come off, but a different one will take its place. You are assuming I would care who you are." "Everyone cares." The bitterness in his voice was stark. "Everyone always cares." Olivia stopped dancing, forcing him to stop too. They stood in the center of the rooftop garden, hands still joined, masks still firmly in place. "I care about the man who noticed I was standing alone. The man who made me laugh and brought me somewhere beautiful. The man who listened when I told him about Emma. That is who I care about." For a long moment, he simply looked at her. Then he reached up and slowly removed his wolf mask. The face beneath was striking. Strong features, high cheekbones, a mouth that was currently set in a serious line. His eyes, no longer shadowed by the mask, were an even more brilliant blue than she had realized. He looked to be in his early 30s, and there was something familiar about him, though Olivia could not place why. "My name is Alexander Donovan," he said quietly. The name hit her like a physical blow. Alexander Donovan. Everyone in the city knew that name. The Donovan family owned half the real estate downtown, including the hospital where Olivia worked. Alexander himself was the CEO of Donovan Enterprises, worth billions, his face regularly gracing magazine covers and business sections. He was famous for being ruthless in negotiations, brilliant in investments, and intensely private about his personal life. "Oh," Olivia said, taking a step back. "There it is." His expression closed off, walls slamming into place behind his eyes. "The moment everything changes. You own my hospital. Technically, my company owns the building. The hospital administration runs the actual operations. But you are Alexander Donovan. Olivia pressed her hand to her forehead, trying to process this information. The Alexander Donovan, the billionaire. I am still the same man who was dancing with you 30 seconds ago. No, you are not. Olivia shook her head, suddenly understanding why he had wanted to remain anonymous. You are the man who could solve Emma's family's problems with a single check. You are the man who decides whether programs get funding or get cut. You are the man whose decisions affect hundreds of people's lives, including mine. And now you are looking at me the way everyone does. Calculating what I can do for you rather than seeing who I am. That is not fair. Is it not? Alexander moved closer, his jaw tight with tension. Tell me honestly, are you not already thinking about Emma, about whether I could help her family? Olivia wanted to deny it, but she could not. The thought had crossed her mind the instant she realized who he was. How could it not? Here was someone with the resources to change everything for that little girl and her family, someone who could make their nightmare easier with barely a fraction of his wealth. Yes, she admitted. I am thinking about it, but that does not mean it is all I am thinking about. What else then? I am thinking about how lonely you must be, how exhausting it must be to never know if people like you for who you are or what you can do for them. I am thinking about why a billionaire would come to a charity masquerade and hide behind a mask, seeking out someone who looked as lost as he feels. Alexander stared at her, and for a moment, she saw past his defenses to something raw and vulnerable beneath. Then he turned away, walking to the edge of the rooftop to look out over the city. You should go back to the party, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Your friend is probably looking for you. Is that what you want? It does not matter what I want. Olivia walked over to stand beside him, not touching but close enough to matter. I think it matters very much. You asked me to tell you something real. Let me return the favor. I do not care about your money. I care about the man who brought me to a rooftop garden and danced with me under the stars. That man matters. Can he come back, or did he disappear with the mask? Alexander turned to face her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. You do not know what you are asking. Then tell me. I am not a good man, Olivia. I have done things to build my empire that would make you think less of me. I have made decisions that put profit over people. I have been called heartless, ruthless, cold. Those are not unfair assessments. Everyone is capable of being more than their worst moments. You still believe in redemption then? In hope? Always. He reached out and gently removed her butterfly mask, setting it aside on the wall beside them. His fingers traced the curve of her cheek, a touch so soft it was barely there. You are dangerous, because I see you as human, because you make me want to be the man you think I am rather than the man I have become. Olivia's heart was racing, every nerve alive and aware of his proximity. Maybe you are already that man and you just forgot. If I kiss you right now, everything becomes more complicated. Life is already complicated. I am serious, Olivia. I cannot offer you a normal relationship. My life is public, scrutinized. Anyone close to me becomes a target for media attention and speculation. My schedule is insane, my responsibilities endless. I do not have time for romance or the energy for emotional entanglements. Then why are we still standing here? Because I have not been able to walk away from you since the moment I saw you across that ballroom. His thumb brushed across her lower lip. Because you make me feel something I thought I had lost the capacity to feel. Because when you look at me, I forget about everything else. Then stop talking and kiss me. Alexander Donovan did not need to be told twice. His mouth found hers with a hunger that spoke of long denial, of walls crumbling, of masks finally being set aside. Olivia melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck as he pulled her close, his hands spanning her waist. The kiss was everything a first kiss should be, urgent and sweet and full of promise. The city lights blurring around them until nothing existed except this moment, this connection, this impossible feeling of rightness. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "What are you doing to me? Hopefully nothing you will regret." "I already know I will regret this. The question is whether I care enough to stop. And do you? Not even a little bit." He kissed her again, softer this time, savoring rather than devouring. "Come home with me, Alexander." "Not for that," he said quickly, though his eyes held heat that made her skin flush. "I want more time with you before this night ends and reality crashes back in. Come have a drink, talk to me. Let me be selfish and keep you to myself a little longer." Olivia knew she should say no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming that this was moving too fast, that she was getting involved with someone whose world was completely different from hers, that this could only end badly. But she had spent so long being careful, being responsible, putting everyone else's needs before her own. For once, she wanted to be reckless. "Okay," she said, "but I need to tell Sarah I am leaving." Alexander smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger and less burdened. "I can arrange that." He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Olivia listened in amazement as he somehow managed to have a message delivered to Sarah that her friend had left early but was perfectly safe. When he hung up, she raised an eyebrow. "You really can make anything happen, can you?" "Money has its advantages." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" They left the rooftop garden and made their way down through the hotel. Alexander moved with easy confidence, nodding to the staff members who recognized him, his hand warm on Olivia's lower back. A sleek black car was already waiting when they exited the building, a driver holding the door open. "You called ahead for this too?" Olivia asked as Alexander helped her into the back seat. "I am efficient." The drive through the city was surreal. Olivia sat beside this man who commanded such power and wealth, still wearing her borrowed ball gown, watching the familiar streets pass by outside the tinted windows. Alexander held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, and neither of them spoke. Words felt unnecessary, the silence comfortable rather than awkward. They pulled up in front of a building Olivia recognized as one of the most expensive residential towers in the city. Of course, Alexander Donovan lived here. Where else would a billionaire call home? They rode the elevator to the penthouse, and when the doors opened directly into his apartment, Olivia's breath caught. The space was stunning, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern design, art that probably cost more than most people's houses hanging on the walls. But what struck her most was how impersonal it felt, like a photograph from an architecture magazine rather than a home where someone actually lived. "Nice place," she said, stepping inside. "It serves its purpose." Alexander moved to the bar and poured 2 glasses of wine, bringing one to her. "You hate it." "I do not hate it. It is beautiful." But Olivia accepted the wine and took a sip, buying time to formulate her thoughts. "It does not feel like you, or maybe it does not feel like anyone. It feels like a showcase." "That is because that is what it is. A place to entertain clients, to host business dinners, to maintain the image expected of someone in my position." He gestured to the pristine furniture, the carefully arranged everything. "I sleep here, but I do not live here." "Then where do you live?" Alexander smiled slightly, setting down his wine glass. "Come with me." He led her through the apartment to a door she had assumed was a closet. Instead, it opened onto a staircase that spiraled upward. Olivia followed him up to a second level she had not known existed, and when they emerged, she gasped. This space was completely different. The furniture here was comfortable rather than impressive. well-worn leather sofas and overstuffed chairs that invited lounging. Bookshelves lined one wall, packed with everything from classic literature to modern thrillers to what looked like philosophy texts. A guitar rested on a stand in one corner, and photographs scattered across a desk showed a younger Alexander with people who must have been family. "This is more like it," Olivia said, turning in a slow circle. "This feels real. This is where I come when I want to be myself rather than Alexander Donovan, CEO." He moved to the windows, which offered an even more spectacular view of the city than the level below. "No one knows about this space except my housekeeper and now you. Why are you showing me? Because you asked where I live and I found I wanted to answer honestly." He turned to face her, his expression serious. "I told you, Olivia, you are dangerous. You make me want things I thought I had given up on." She set down her wine glass and crossed to him, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "What did you give up on?" "Connection. Real intimacy. Someone who sees past the money and power to whatever is left underneath." His hands settled on her waist, fingers flexing slightly against the silk of her gown. "I convinced myself I did not need those things, that I was better off alone. And now I am standing here with a woman I met 3 hours ago, feeling more alive than I have in years, terrified that sunrise will come and you will disappear like Cinderella leaving the ball." Olivia reached up to touch his face, her palm cupping his jaw. "I am not going anywhere tonight." The kiss that followed was different from the ones on the rooftop. This was slower, deeper, full of intention rather than spontaneous passion. Alexander pulled her closer, his hands sliding up her back, and Olivia felt heat pooling low in her belly. When he lifted her, she wrapped her legs around his waist instinctively, and he carried her to the leather sofa without breaking the kiss. They spent hours tangled together there, kissing and talking and kissing again, hands exploring but never crossing the line into more than heated touches and racing pulses. Alexander told her about growing up with impossible expectations, about losing his parents in a plane crash when he was 25, and suddenly being thrust into running a business empire he had barely begun to understand. Olivia told him about choosing nursing because she wanted to help people, about her own parents who lived quietly in a small town upstate and could not quite understand their daughter's choices but supported her anyway. "You ever regret it?" Alexander asked as they lay facing each other on the sofa, their bodies pressed close in the limited space. "Choosing a path that is so emotionally difficult. Every time I lose a patient," Olivia admitted. "Every time I have to watch a family say goodbye. But then I remember the ones who make it, the moments when I get to tell someone their child is going home, and I know I could not do anything else. You are remarkable. I am ordinary." "No." He kissed her forehead, her cheek, the corner of her mouth. "You are extraordinary, and I think you do not even realize it." Dawn was breaking over the city when Olivia finally admitted she should go home. Alexander called his driver, then insisted on lending her a jacket to cover her ball gown for the ride. They stood by the elevator, neither wanting to be the first to let go. "I want to see you again," Alexander said, his arms around her waist. "Soon, today if you are free. I work the evening shift. Then lunch, dinner tomorrow, coffee the day after. I do not care, Olivia. Just say I will see you again," she smiled, rising on her toes to kiss him. "You will see me again, I promise. Give me your phone." She handed it over and he entered his number, then called himself so he would have hers. When he returned the device, his expression was vulnerable in a way she suspected few people ever saw. "I am not good at this," he said quietly. "Dating, relationships, any of it. I will probably mess up spectacularly. Then we will figure it out as we go." The elevator arrived and Olivia forced herself to step inside. Alexander caught the door before it could close, stealing one more kiss that left her breathless. "Go," he said against her mouth, "before I convince you to stay." The ride down felt endless, and when Olivia emerged onto the street, the city was waking up around her. Alexander's driver was waiting, professional and discreet, and she slipped into the backseat feeling like she had stepped out of a fairy tale and back into real life. Her apartment was quiet when she arrived, Sarah's bedroom door closed, suggesting her friend had made it home safely and was sleeping off the Masquerade. Olivia changed out of the borrowed gown and collapsed into her own bed, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. She had gone to a masquerade ball, danced with a stranger, and somehow ended up in the private sanctuary of one of the city's most powerful men. It should have felt impossible, like something from a movie rather than her actual life. But the weight of Alexander's phone number in her contacts, and the memory of his kisses said it was very real. Her phone buzzed before she could drift off to sleep. "Alexander, I know you need to rest, but I had to tell you. Last night was the best night I have had in longer than I can remember. Thank you for seeing me. The real me." Olivia smiled, her exhaustion forgotten as she typed a response. "Olivia, thank you for showing me. Sleep well, Alexander." "Alexander, you too, Olivia. Dream of me." She did. When Olivia woke that afternoon, Sarah was sitting on the end of her bed with a cup of coffee and an expression that demanded explanation. "Okay," Sarah said without preamble. "Spill." "You disappeared from the masquerade with a mystery man, and when I texted asking if you were alive, I got some cryptic message about leaving early. What happened?" Olivia sat up, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I met someone, obviously." "Who?" "Alexander Donovan." Sarah's eyes went wide. "The Alexander Donovan, the billionaire who owns half the city. That would be the one. And you just casually met him at a masquerade and went home with him?" "It was not like that." Olivia launched into the story, leaving out some of the more intimate details, but painting enough of a picture that Sarah's expression shifted from shock to something softer. "Olivia," Sarah said when she finished, "this is insane. You know that, right?" "I know. He is a billionaire. You are a pediatric nurse. Your worlds could not be more different. I know that too. But you like him anyway." It was not a question, but Olivia answered it. "I really like him, Sarah. I know it is crazy and too fast and probably doomed, but there was something there. Real connection. He was not putting on an act or trying to impress me. He was just himself, and I liked who that was." Sarah was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "Then I am happy for you, cautiously optimistic and ready to kill him if he hurts you, but happy." "Thanks, I think. When are you seeing him again?" "We are supposed to have lunch today, but I do not even know if he meant it or if it was just something people say." Right on cue, her phone buzzed. "Alexander, there is a cafe on 5th and Main called The Garden. Meet me there at noon. I promise they have the best sandwiches in the city, and it is quiet enough that we can actually talk." Olivia showed Sarah the message, and her friend grinned. He meant it. "Now go shower and find something to wear that says I am a normal person on a casual lunch date, and not I spent all night making out with a billionaire." "We did not spend all night making out, but you did make out." "Shut up." Olivia made it to the garden at exactly noon, nervous in a way she had not been since high school. She had changed outfits 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple blue blouse that Sarah had approved with a nod. The cafe was exactly as Alexander had described, tucked between 2 larger buildings. Its outdoor patio shaded by actual trees that gave it the garden atmosphere its name promised. Alexander was already there, sitting at a corner table, and when he saw her, his entire face lit up. He stood, meeting her halfway, and kissed her cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You came," he said. "Did you think I would not? I was afraid you would wake up and decide last night was a mistake. Did you? Not even for a second." He held her chair out, a gesture so old-fashioned it was charming, then sat across from her. "I already ordered for both of us. I hope that is not too presumptuous, but the Turkey Club here is incredible, and I wanted to make sure we had time to eat and talk before you have to go to work." A waiter appeared with 2 plates, and Alexander had not been exaggerating. The sandwiches were enormous, piled high with fresh ingredients, and Olivia realized she was starving. They ate and talked, conversation flowing as easily in daylight as it had under the stars. Alexander asked about her work, seeming genuinely interested in the details of hospital routines and patient care, and Olivia found herself telling him stories she usually kept private. "Emma is coming in today for her next treatment," she said, then hesitated. "I do not want you to think I am bringing her up because of what you could do to help. She is on my mind a lot." Alexander set down his sandwich, his expression serious. "Tell me about her family situation, specifics." "Alexander, I was not asking for anything. I know, tell me anyway." So she did. She explained how Emma's father worked 2 jobs but still could not keep up with the mounting medical bills. How her mother had quit working to stay with Emma full-time, but that meant losing her income and health insurance. How they were one more bad piece of news away from complete financial collapse. Alexander listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening as she spoke. "I want to help," he said when she finished. "You do not have to do that." "I know I do not have to. I want to. Give me the family's name and I will have my assistant make some calls." "Anonymously," he added when Olivia opened her mouth to protest. "They will never know it came from me. As far as they are concerned, it will be a grant from the hospital's charitable foundation." "Why would you do this?" "Because you care about them, which makes me care about them. And because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and if I cannot use some of it to help a 6-year-old girl fight cancer, what is the point of having it?" Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. Do not thank me. Just promise you will keep seeing me even after I inevitably do something stupid to mess this up." "Deal." They finished lunch, and Alexander walked her to where she had parked her car, their hands linked. Before she could get in, he pulled her close, kissing her with a thoroughness that made her forget they were on a public street in the middle of the day. "I have to go to London tomorrow," he said when they finally broke apart. "Business meetings that cannot be rescheduled. I will be gone for 5 days." "Okay." Olivia tried to keep the disappointment from her voice. "Come with me." "What? Come with me to London? I know it is insane and too fast and you have work, but I will have you back by the weekend. We can see the city between meetings and I can show you places tourists never find. Say yes, Olivia. I cannot just fly to London on a whim. I have patience, responsibilities." "I know, but when is the last time you did something completely spontaneous, something just for yourself?" "Never." The answer was never. Olivia had always been responsible, practical, thinking of others before herself. The idea of flying to London with a man she had known for less than 24 hours was ridiculous. "Yes," she heard herself say, "I will come with you." Alexander's smile was brilliant. "Really? Really? But I need to clear it with my supervisor and find someone to cover my shifts. Done. Give me her number and I will handle it." "You cannot just buy my time off, Alexander. I am not buying anything. I am making a generous donation to the hospital in exchange for them allowing one of their best nurses to take a few well-deserved days off. Completely different." Olivia laughed, shaking her head. "You are impossible." "I am determined. There is a difference." He kissed her again, quick and hard. Pack your passport. I will pick you up tomorrow at 6 in the morning. The next 24 hours passed in a blur. Olivia's supervisor was surprisingly agreeable to her taking sudden vacation time, especially after the hospital received a substantial anonymous donation earmarked for the pediatric ward. Sarah helped her pack, alternating between excitement and concern. "This is crazy," Sarah said, folding clothes into Olivia's suitcase. "You are flying to London with a billionaire you met at a masquerade ball 2 days ago. I know. But you are doing it anyway. I am doing it anyway. Then you need to take the good lingerie." "Sarah, I am just saying, if you are going to have a whirlwind romance with a gorgeous billionaire, you should at least look good doing it." Olivia threw a pillow at her, but she packed the good lingerie. Alexander picked her up at exactly 6 the next morning, looking unfairly attractive in casual clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His driver loaded her luggage, and Alexander pulled her into the back seat, immediately wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You really came," he said, kissing her temple. "Did you think I would back out?" "I was prepared to be disappointed." They drove to a private airport, and Olivia tried not to gape when she saw the jet waiting on the tarmac. Of course, Alexander Donovan had a private jet. Why would someone like him fly commercial? The interior was exactly as luxurious as she had imagined, all leather seats and polished wood, and a flight attendant who greeted them with champagne. "This is not real life," Olivia said as they took off, the city falling away beneath them. "It is my life," Alexander replied, his hand finding hers. "But I want it to be ours, even if just for a few days." The flight was long but comfortable. They talked, slept with Olivia's head on Alexander's shoulder, watched movies on a screen that descended from the ceiling. Alexander worked for a few hours, and Olivia read a book on her phone, stealing glances at him as he frowned at his laptop. There was something deeply satisfying about existing in the same space, doing separate things but together, comfortable in the silence. London was rainy when they landed, but Alexander seemed unconcerned, hustling her into another waiting car and through streets she recognized from movies, but had never seen in person. They pulled up in front of a historic hotel, and Alexander checked them in with the ease of someone who did this regularly. Their suite was stunning, overlooking the Thames, the city spread out before them like a painting. Olivia stood at the window, watching boats move along the river, and felt Alexander come up behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think this is the most surreal experience of my life." "Good surreal or bad surreal?" She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "Good, definitely good, but Alexander, I need you to be honest with me about something. Anything. What are we doing? Is this just a fun few days, a fantasy that ends when we get back to reality? Or are we building something real here?" Alexander was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I want it to be real. I know that is complicated and probably ill-advised and definitely too fast, but Olivia, I have not felt this way about anyone in my entire life. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You see me as more than just my bank account or my company. I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose it either, but your world and mine are so different, then we will figure out how to bridge them." He cupped her face in his hands. "I am not saying it will be easy. My life comes with complications. Media attention, security concerns, social obligations that will bore you to tears. But if you are willing to try, so am I." "I am willing," Olivia said softly. "But we have to communicate, Alexander. No hiding behind walls or masks. If this gets hard, we talk about it. We figure it out together. Deal?" He kissed her soft and sweet. "Now I have meetings for the next 4 hours. You can rest here, explore the hotel, or my assistant arranged for a car and driver if you want to see the city. I can entertain myself for 4 hours. I will be back by early evening, and then we will have dinner somewhere incredible. Wear something nice." Alexander left, and Olivia spent the afternoon exploring London on her own. The driver Alexander had arranged was patient and knowledgeable, taking her to see Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, and Westminster Abbey. She wandered through museums and shops, feeling like a tourist but loving every minute of it. When she returned to the hotel, Alexander was already back, changed into a dark suit that made him look every inch the powerful businessman he was. They went to dinner at a restaurant Olivia could never have afforded on her own, eating food that was as much art as sustenance, drinking wine that cost more per glass than she usually spent on dinner for a week. "Tell me about your meetings," she said over dessert. "Boring negotiations about property acquisitions." Alexander waved a hand dismissively. "Nothing interesting. I doubt anything you do is boring. You would be surprised. Most of business is tedious details and endless discussions. The exciting parts are few and far between." "But you love it anyway," he considered that. "I love building things, taking something and making it better, more efficient, more profitable. The negotiations and meetings are just necessary steps to get there." They walked back to the hotel through streets lit by old-fashioned street lamps, London alive with night energy around them. Alexander kept her hand tucked in his, pointing out landmarks and telling her stories about the city. Back in their suite, they stood at the window again, watching the river reflect the city lights. "Thank you for bringing me here," Olivia said. "Thank you for coming. I know this is all overwhelming, a little, but in a good way." She turned to face him, her heart pounding. "Alexander, I should tell you I do not usually move this fast. I do not usually fly to foreign countries with men I barely know. This is not who I normally am." "Who are you normally? Careful, practical, a little boring." "You are not boring." He pulled her closer, his hands settling on her hips. "You are extraordinary, and for what it is worth, I do not usually do this either. I do not date. I certainly do not bring women to London on business trips, but with you I cannot seem to help myself." Olivia reached up to loop her arms around his neck. "Then maybe we are both being a little crazy together. Maybe that is not such a bad thing." When Alexander kissed her this time, it was with clear intent. Olivia melted into him, her body responding to every touch, every caress. His hand slid up her back, finding the zipper of her dress, and she nodded against his mouth. Permission and invitation wrapped into one gesture. They moved to the bedroom, shedding clothes and inhibitions, learning each other's bodies with reverent attention. Alexander was attentive and thorough, making sure she was ready, that she wanted this as much as he did. When they finally came together, it felt like something more than physical, a connection that went soul deep. Afterward, they lay tangled in expensive sheets, Olivia's head on Alexander's chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Neither spoke, words feeling inadequate for what had just happened between them. "Stay," Alexander murmured eventually. "Not just tonight, but really stay. Move in with me when we get back. I know it is insane to ask after knowing you for less than a week, but Olivia, I do not want to spend another night without you." Olivia lifted her head to look at him. "That is insane. I know. We barely know each other. I know that too. What if we rush this and ruin it? What if we do not and miss out on something incredible?" Alexander's hand cupped her cheek. "I have spent my entire adult life being careful, calculated, making decisions based on logic and data. You make me want to throw all of that out the window and just feel. Please, Olivia, say yes." She should have said no. Every rational part of her knew that. But lying here with him, feeling more alive and happy than she could remember being, Olivia found she did not want to be rational. "Okay," she whispered. "Yes, I will move in with you." Alexander's smile was brilliant, and he kissed her with a passion that quickly reignited the heat between them. They made love again, slower this time, savoring each touch and taste. Olivia fell asleep in his arms as dawn broke over London, feeling like her entire life had shifted on its axis in the space of a few magical days. The next 3 days in London passed in a blur of meetings Alexander had to attend and tourist activities they crammed into every spare moment. Olivia saw the city through his eyes, visiting his favorite hidden restaurants and quiet parks where they could walk hand in hand without crowds pressing in. Alexander was different here, more relaxed, like the distance from home allowed him to truly be himself without the weight of expectation. "I could live here," Olivia said as they sat by the Thames, watching boats drift past. "Would you want to?" Alexander asked, seeming genuinely curious. "I do not know. Maybe someday. For now, I like my work, my life in the city, but it is nice to know the world is bigger than my usual routine. We can travel anywhere you want. Paris, Tokyo, Rome. Say the word and we will go." Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder. "I just want to be wherever you are." Flying back to reality felt bittersweet. The few days in London had been a bubble, insulated from real life and all its complications. But as the jet touched down at the private airport, Olivia knew things were about to get more complex. The media attention started immediately. Someone must have tipped off the press that Alexander Donovan had traveled to London with an unknown woman, because photographers were waiting when they left the airport. Alexander's security team managed to get them to the car quickly, but not before several cameras captured images of them together. "I am sorry," Alexander said as they drove toward the city. "I should have warned you this might happen." "It is fine," Olivia said, though her heart was racing. "I knew you were famous. There is a difference between knowing it abstractly and having cameras in your face." He pulled out his phone, already scrolling through what must have been messages from his team. "This will blow over quickly. A few days of speculation and they will move on to the next story." He was wrong. By the time Olivia returned to work the next day, her face was on the internet. "Mystery woman captured Alexander Donovan's heart," read one headline. "Billionaire's secret romance," claimed another. Her co-workers stared, some with curiosity, others with something that looked like judgment. Emma's mother recognized her immediately when Olivia came to check on her daughter. "You are the nurse who was with Alexander Donovan," she said, her voice awed. "We saw the pictures online." "I am still just a nurse," Olivia replied, checking Emma's vitals. "How is our girl doing today?" "Better." Emma's mother smiled, and there was real hope in her eyes for the first time in weeks. "The doctor said the new treatment protocol is working, and somehow our medical bills got paid. All of them. The hospital said it was a grant we qualified for, but it feels like a miracle." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Alexander had kept his word, helping this family without them ever knowing it came from him. "Miracles happen," she said, squeezing the woman's hand. "And Emma is strong. She is going to beat this." The media attention did not blow over in a few days. If anything, it intensified. Reporters started showing up at the hospital, trying to interview Olivia about her relationship with Alexander. Her apartment building became a stakeout location for paparazzi. It was overwhelming and invasive, and Olivia found herself calling Alexander in tears after a particularly aggressive photographer followed her to her car. "Come stay with me tonight," Alexander said immediately. "Pack a bag and come here. You will be safe." "I cannot let them drive me from my own apartment." "You are not letting them do anything. You are choosing to spend the night with your boyfriend who happens to have excellent security." He paused. "Unless you do not want to move in anymore, I would understand if this is too much." "No," Olivia said firmly. "I am not backing out, but Alexander, we need to address this. The media attention is not going away and I need to figure out how to handle it. Then we will figure it out together. Just come here tonight and we will make a plan." Olivia packed more than just a bag for one night. She packed enough for a week, knowing that once she crossed this threshold, there was no going back. Sarah helped her, unusually quiet. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked as Olivia loaded suitcases into her car. "Once you move in with him, everything changes." "Everything already changed. I just need to catch up to where my life already is." Alexander met her in his private garage, his security team efficiently moving her belongings while he pulled her into his arms. "You are really here." "I am really here." That first night living together was surprisingly normal. They ordered takeout, watched a movie, went to bed early because Olivia had an early shift the next morning. It felt domestic and comfortable, like they had been doing this for years rather than days. Over the next few weeks, they settled into a routine. Olivia worked her shifts at the hospital while Alexander managed his business empire. They had dinner together most nights, either at home or at quiet restaurants where Alexander's name got them private tables away from prying eyes. They learned each other's habits and quirks, how Olivia liked her coffee in the morning, and how Alexander had trouble sleeping if there was any noise. The media attention gradually lessened as new scandals captured public interest, though Olivia knew they would always be watched. She learned to ignore the photographers, to keep her head down and not respond to shouted questions. Alexander's security team became familiar faces, discreet, but always present. 2 months after the Masquerade ball, Alexander came home early from work with an unusual expression on his face. Olivia looked up from where she was reading on the couch, immediately concerned. "What is wrong?" she asked. "Nothing is wrong." Alexander sat beside her, taking her hands in his. "I had lunch with Emma's parents today." "You what?" "They contacted my office, wanted to thank the person responsible for the grant that paid their medical bills. My assistant tried to deflect, but I decided to meet with them. I wanted to see for myself how Emma was doing. And she is in remission." "Full remission, Olivia." "The doctors are cautiously optimistic that she beat it." Alexander's eyes were suspiciously bright. "Her parents cried when they told me. They said you were the one who gave them hope when they had none left, who held their daughter's hand through the worst of it." Olivia felt tears spill down her own cheeks. "She made it. She made it. And her parents want to meet you for dinner to thank you properly. They do not know we are together, do not know you are the reason I helped. I thought we could keep it that way if you are comfortable with it." "Of course." "When?" "Saturday night if you are free." The dinner was emotional and beautiful. Emma's parents brought photos of their daughter, healthy and smiling, her hair starting to grow back. They talked about their plans for the future, about how they were finally able to breathe again. Olivia held it together until they left, then collapsed against Alexander in the restaurant parking lot, sobbing with relief and joy. "This is why you do what you do," Alexander said, holding her close. "This is the difference you make." "We make," Olivia corrected, looking up at him. "You saved that family financially. That was just as important as the medical care. Then we are a good team, the best team." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Alexander's business took him traveling occasionally, and sometimes Olivia went with him, using vacation days to see new cities and countries. Other times she stayed home, committed to her patients and her work. Alexander never pressured her to quit or to be someone different than who she was, and Olivia loved him more for that understanding. They had their first real fight 4 months into their relationship. A stupid argument about Alexander working too much that escalated into both of them saying things they did not mean. Olivia slept in the guest room, miserable and angry, until Alexander knocked on the door at 2 in the morning. "I am sorry," he said when she opened it. "You were right. I was using work as an excuse to avoid dealing with some difficult decisions, and I took your concern as criticism when you were just trying to help. I am sorry, too. I should not have said you care more about your business than our relationship. I know that is not true." They made up, talking through their issues rather than letting resentment build, and Olivia felt their relationship grow stronger because of it. This was real life, not a fairy tale, and real life had arguments and difficult conversations and moments of frustration. But it also had making up and growing together and choosing each other every single day. 6 months after meeting at the Masquerade ball, Alexander took Olivia back to the garden, the cafe where they had their first real date. They sat at the same corner table, and Alexander seemed nervous in a way she rarely saw from him. "I have been thinking," he said, holding her hand across the table, "about the future. About what I want my life to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And Olivia, I cannot imagine any of those futures without you in them. Alexander, let me finish." He smiled, though his hand trembled slightly in hers. "You changed my life. Before you, I was successful but hollow, wealthy but poor in all the ways that mattered. You showed me what it means to connect with someone, to care about more than just the next deal or acquisition. You make me want to be better, do better. You make me want to come home." He slid from his chair to kneel beside the table, and Olivia's breath caught. Several other diners noticed, pulling out phones to capture the moment, but she barely registered their presence. All she could see was Alexander, looking up at her with love and hope and vulnerability in his eyes. "Olivia Mitchell, I know this is fast by most standards. I know we have only known each other for 6 months, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life." He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring that caught the light, beautiful but not ostentatious. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Olivia said, not even having to think about it. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Alexander's laugh was pure joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her while the cafe erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, and Olivia knew this moment would be all over the internet within hours. She did not care. Let the world watch. She had found her person, her partner, her home. The engagement made headlines, just as everything they did seemed to. Billionaire Alexander Donovan engaged to pediatric nurse, the articles proclaimed, many of them focusing on the fairy tale aspect of their story. Olivia gave one carefully controlled interview where she emphasized that while yes, Alexander's wealth was part of his life, it was not what she loved about him. She loved his intelligence, his dry sense of humor, the way he listened when she talked about her day. She loved how he challenged her to be brave, how he supported her career without trying to change it, how he looked at her like she was the most important person in his world. The wedding planning was a negotiation between Alexander's public obligations and Olivia's desire for something intimate and personal. They compromised, holding a small ceremony with close friends and family, followed by a larger reception for Alexander's business associates and social connections. Sarah was Olivia's maid of honor, and watching her best friend walk down the aisle before her, Olivia felt the surreal nature of her life hit her all over again. Then the music changed, and she was walking toward Alexander, who waited at the altar looking at her like she had hung the moon. His eyes were suspiciously bright, and she realized he was fighting tears. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals undone by the sight of her in a wedding dress. The ceremony was beautiful, their vows a mix of traditional and personal promises. When the officiant pronounced them married, Alexander kissed her with a thoroughness that made the guests laugh and cheer. They walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, husband and wife, ready to face whatever came next as a team. Their honeymoon was 2 weeks in Bora Bora, a private villa over crystal-clear water, white sand beaches and perfect sunsets. They spent lazy days swimming and talking and making love, nights watching stars from their deck, Alexander's arms around her waist as they swayed to music only they could hear. "I want to tell you something," Olivia said one night as they sat watching the waves. "I am not pregnant or anything dramatic, so do not panic." "I am not panicking," Alexander said, though she felt his arms tighten slightly around her. "What is it?" "I just want you to know that I am happy, completely, entirely happy. I know we got here fast, and I know people probably think I am crazy for marrying you after knowing you less than a year. But Alexander, you are my best friend, my partner, the person I want to tell everything to. Thank you for asking me to dance that night. Thank you for saying yes." Alexander turned her in his arms so they were facing each other. "And Olivia, for what it is worth, I would not change a single thing about how we got here. Fast or slow, it does not matter. We ended up exactly where we were supposed to be." They returned from their honeymoon to real life, but real life felt different now. They were building something together, making decisions as partners rather than individuals. Alexander started a new charitable foundation focused on helping families with medical debt, putting Olivia in charge of identifying cases that needed support. She reduced her hours at the hospital to part-time so she could manage the foundation work, finding new fulfillment in being able to help on a larger scale. A year after their wedding, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. Alexander cried when she told him, actual tears streaming down his face as he held her close. They painted a nursery together in the private section of the penthouse, arguing good-naturedly about color schemes and furniture. Alexander read every parenting book he could find, determined to be prepared, while Olivia laughed at his intensity and assured him they would figure it out as they went. Their daughter was born on a snowy December evening, arriving 3 weeks early and impatient to meet the world. Alexander held her with such tenderness, such complete awe, that Olivia fell in love with him all over again. They named her Hope, because that was what she represented, what Olivia had always chosen to see even in dark places. Life with a baby was chaotic and exhausting and more wonderful than Olivia had imagined. Alexander was a devoted father, changing diapers and handling midnight feedings with the same focus he brought to business negotiations. They were both zombies from lack of sleep, but they were happy zombies, taking turns so the other could rest, working as the team they had always been. Emma came to visit when Hope was 2 months old, now a healthy 8-year-old with a bright smile and energy to spare. She held the baby carefully, telling Hope all about how her Uncle Alexander and Aunt Olivia had saved her life, even though she did not remember most of it. Watching them together, Olivia felt the full-circle nature of their story, how helping one little girl had led to meeting the love of her life, which had led to this new little person who represented their future. "What are you thinking about?" Alexander asked that night after everyone had left and Hope was finally asleep. "How lucky I am. How one night, one dance changed everything." "You were not lucky. You were brave." Alexander pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You said yes to a stranger in a wolf mask. You flew to London on a whim. You moved in with me after knowing me for less than a week. You married me after 6 months. Every step of the way, you were brave enough to take the risk. You were worth the risk. We were worth the risk, he corrected. Both of us together. This life we built. 2 years later, they added a son to their family, and Alexander insisted on naming him Oliver, saying it was close enough to Olivia that everyone would know where he got his best qualities. They bought a house outside the city, somewhere with a yard for the kids to play and space for the chaos of family life. Alexander still worked, but he had delegated more responsibilities, choosing to spend his time where it mattered most. Olivia continued her foundation work, expanding their reach to help more families, creating programs that provided both financial support and emotional resources for those facing medical crises. She spoke at conferences, sharing Emma's story and others like it, advocating for better healthcare access and support systems. Alexander stood beside her at these events, proud and supportive, using his influence to amplify her message. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they returned to the Grandview Hotel, where the annual Riverside charity Masquerade was once again taking place. They wore masks, Olivia's a golden butterfly and Alexander's a silver wolf, and stood near the champagne fountain watching the crowd. "Should I ask a stranger to dance?" Alexander murmured in her ear. "You could, but I might get jealous. Then I should probably ask my wife instead." "I do not know," Olivia teased. "I heard she has very high standards." Apparently she once fell in love with a mysterious billionaire who swept her off her feet at a masquerade ball. "He sounds insufferable." "He is a little, but she loves him anyway." Alexander laughed, pulling her onto the dance floor. They moved together with the ease of long practice, bodies fitting perfectly, every step instinctive. Other dancers moved around them, but Olivia only saw her husband, this man who had commanded her to dance 5 years ago and changed her entire life. "I love you," Alexander said, his voice soft beneath the music. "Every single day I love you more than the day before. I love you too, my mysterious stranger, my wolf in a mask. You know all my secrets now, no more mystery." Olivia smiled, reaching up to touch his face above the mask. "There is always more to learn. That is what makes life interesting." They danced until the orchestra stopped playing, until the other guests began to filter out into the night. Then they removed their masks, left the ball behind, and went home together to the life they had built, the family they had created, the love that had started with a single command and grown into something neither of them could have imagined. Years later, when their children asked about how Mommy and Daddy met, Olivia would tell them about a magical night at a masquerade ball, about a mysterious stranger in a wolf mask who asked her to dance. She would tell them about falling in love fast and getting married faster, about taking risks and being brave, about choosing hope even when the world seemed dark. And Alexander would add that sometimes the best things in life happen when you stop planning and just feel, when you take off your masks and show someone who you really are. He would tell them that their mother saved him long before he ever saved her, that she taught him what really mattered, that every good thing in his life started the moment she said yes to his command. The children would listen, wide-eyed and entranced, asking for the story again and again. And Olivia and Alexander would tell it, each time remembering that magical night when two strangers became something more, when a dance became a lifetime, when they found in each other everything they had been missing. Their love story was not conventional, did not follow the typical timeline, did not make sense on paper. But it was theirs, authentic and true, built on honesty and trust and the willingness to be vulnerable with each other. They faced challenges together, celebrated victories together, built a life together that was richer and fuller than either of them had dreamed possible. And it all started with 3 simple words and a hand extended across a crowded ballroom, an invitation that changed everything. A command that became a question, that became a promise, that became a forever. Dance with me, she had, and she never stopped.